Hello, everyone. Welcome to HyperDocs Live. My name is David. I'm here with Lisa. That way. Yep. And we're super excited. We've got a great show for you today. And thank you so much if you are rewatching the show. We are excited to also have you here if you're rewatching the show. So we've had a really hot week here in Madrid. How have things been in California, Lisa?
They are heating up. So it's the kind of heat where it stays hot at night, like 10 o'clock, it's still hot.
Yeah, and things are heating up too in the news, at least for your school district. You just got the news, I think, was it yesterday, about your return to school plan or something?
Yeah, we're still working on it. And I think there's some announcements that are going to be made on these committees that are going to be made next week. So it's a lot of anticipation everyone's feeling right now about that uncertainty. Like, what am I doing? Am I in school or am I not in school? And so I know how the teachers are feeling. We are hearing it from all of our colleagues that we work with, that feeling of not being in control of what's happening in your school year. It's unnerving.
It's such an unnerving feeling, and I feel like it affects everything else you do. Like,
yes,
when does the vacation end, or what's next school year going to look like? It's like a really antagonizing feeling, especially when you're just trying to relax as a teacher and enjoy July and August and like get the break that you need to be all rejuvenated for next year. It's
right. And kind of your sense of time is all askew anyway right now. Like, I didn't feel a huge closure from the end of the school year. And then I'm like, is this vacation time? Because I'm still, at home often. And then it's this interesting how time has a new meanings behind it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've been spending a lot of time reading a book in the park and forgetting what day it is, and then checking my email and remembering everything that's going on around me. So you've been working on some checklists around helping teachers look at their lessons and look at their units and say, is this really gonna be impactful for my students? Is this really reaching them everywhere that they need to be reached? Am I really teaching at the level that I say that I'm teaching? And just like allowing teachers to have something that they can use to look at lessons. Tell us more about what you've been working on.
Well, a little bit about that. I'm going to take a step a little bit before even that, like evaluating that. I've been hearing a lot of comments. I listen to a lot of HyperDoc creators, and I'm hearing a lot of comments like they've never seen a good HyperDoc, or everyone they see is just trash, or it just looks like a digital worksheet. And I had a big aha about this, David. I was thinking maybe they were confusing Teachers Give Teachers with another company. And the other company, Teachers Pay Teachers, is very different from Teachers Give Teachers. And I just want to make that distinction before I share with that work I was doing. So that distinction is, in Teachers Pay Teachers, it's sort of like if you want dinner, you go to fast food, there's a set menu, you select your item, they hand you your bag, and there's your dinner, and then you eat it. And so Teachers Pay Teachers is like that. You look for what you want, you find it, you download it, you hand it to your students. Yes, that is
Globo.
It's,
if you will.
Yeah. And so there's, everyone can use that support however they would like. The difference with Teachers Give Teachers is that it's more, I want you to think of it not like fast food. I want you to think of it like HelloFresh. Now, I don't know, David, if you have in Madrid those companies.
No, what is that?
So HelloFresh is these companies that you can order like a dinner you want, but they don't send you the dinner. They send you all the fresh ingredients, and they send you a list and directions on how to cook it. Now, what I love about HelloFresh, and Kelly can speak to this, she's like the expert on HelloFresh. What I love about it is that me as a cook, I cannot follow a recipe. It's the same way with teaching. I could never follow the teacher's guide. So with HelloFresh, I can like add my own spices. I can leave some spices out, all to the taste. Now think about that in terms of lesson design, everyone. When you find a HyperDoc on Teachers Give Teachers, it's not meant for you to consume or give to your students like a worksheet. It's meant for you to look at and critically think about, how does this fit my students' needs? How can I design this to really match my goals? And the goals that you should be thinking about, that we're really encouraging, is to be asking yourself, does that lesson meet the learning goals for your students? And to be honest, it shouldn't from the get-go, because everyone's got different students, you have different needs. You should be designing for the needs of the students in front of you. The second thing to look for is, does your lesson use technology for enhancement or transformation of learning? And really, what is your goal for tech integration with that lesson? Maybe it's a stepping stone to something higher level, and you do have to teach sort of that enhancement or that substitution. And the third one, are there portions of this lesson that you could revise to elevate to really meet that quality lesson that you were looking for, rather than saying, I've never seen a lesson that's any good. We always encourage that file, make a copy, and revise and edit to meet the kids in front of you. So if you don't mind, Dave, I'd love to share my screen and share what I've created for everyone to get.
Yeah, I was just going to say, give us an example.
How do you know that? Yeah, so let me. I'm
an example kind of guy. I'm a visual. I gotta see it.
I figured that. Okay, so there we go. I think we're going to get that into our share screen. There we go. So we have sent out on our blog this week a whole video where I kind of get into a little more detail about my HelloFresh theory and really thinking, is my HyperDoc more than a worksheet? And those of you who are worrying about next year, this is something that I know a lot of districts are talking about. How can we move from assigning to instruction in this coming school year? And this will get you started. Now, the two checklists that are available for download that you can access are here, but I want to teach you just real quick about our intention for it. The first checklist has these colors, and it has substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. You've been around in tech, you know those are SAMR levels of tech integration. And I always encourage people, and I'll show you from the large version, here's that checklist. You can see that those SAMR models are down the left side. And if you have found a HyperDoc, you can ask yourself the questions that are in the box underneath each term on the left. So start here. Is your lesson foundational skill that leads to more complex skills? Or if you want to move up to modification, how are students using technology to learn how to learn? Very important part of that. Now, if you move over to the right side, say, I want to move this lesson up to a modification level, look on the right side. These are the ISTE standards for tech integration. And so we can get kids to communicate, that interplays, that collaborate, and that practice, that apply. How are we asking kids to apply? How are we getting them to use their voice and choice and to share their work beyond just the audience of the teacher, making it really authentic? So this checklist, there are instructions on how to go through this. The other piece to this though, David, like this is like, how well am I integrating technology?
Right, I was just gonna say, when I look at this, I should be thinking about the technology that's in my lesson and then evaluating my use of the technology in the lesson.
Very much so. But, you know, again, that idea of, is this just a worksheet? And when I think of worksheets, I think about like low-level thinking. I don't have to do too much thought. I have to just get these blanks filled in. So we made another checklist that talks about depth of knowledge and that critical thinking piece in your lesson. And I'm not saying that there's one level that you should be at all the time. We really emphasize, and same with SAMR level, that you should be traveling back and forth between these levels and really examining, are my students thinking at higher levels? And again, ask yourself these questions. At a level 3, does your lesson offer opportunities for them to reason, develop a plan, or a sequence of steps? And if you're not sure how to edit your lesson to include those, look to the right. And those are great depth of knowledge words and ideas that you can start to think, wow, okay, so I can get them to use their voice appropriate for the purpose and the audience, and I can really emphasize that. Or I can do some more compare and contrast or differentiate. So instead of always being at recall and list and summarize, those are some lower level thinking skills that, yes, we do want to build those skills, but how can you travel back and forth between those levels? You're not always at level 1. I think that's
these look useful just no matter what. I mean, even if I'm just looking for new ideas, those checklists on the right like could give me new ideas for like something I've never done in my class I never even thought of doing, you know. That's great. Exactly. I love it.
So take a little time, read the words on the right. examine which level you want to elevate your lesson to, and look at it for that depth of knowledge. And then also, if you are going to use tech, how can we get away from using it just for tech's sake to say that you're doing that? Now, I know a lot of people are going to be using technology because of whatever remote situation, or sliding back and forth between, hybrid, the classroom and remote. And so it's really important to be thinking about these lessons. How can I shift my lesson and elevate it to move from just assigning that digital worksheet to really have that instructional piece in it? And I hope that those might give you that frame of reference around standards that are already in place and really highly regarded. There's so many elements you can put into a lesson, and this is just the beginning. I'm excited to share, though, where we're going today with our session.
Yeah, well, and you hit it right on the head. You said stop assigning stuff and start designing stuff, and it's a fantastic segue because we have some fantastic guests with us, Tanya and Rebecca and Clara. All three are working now with Adobe on a fantastic new course all about creativity. I'm going to let them tell you about it. But we were talking before we got on the call exactly what you were just saying, Lisa, about like technology. Like, am I using this technology just to have technology, or is this technology like transforming the entire lesson? And before we got on the call, Rebecca was saying something about how teachers, when they're intentionally planning for their lessons, they can, I'm gonna mess it up here, but you can essentially plan for or with creativity. And it reminded me of that, but I'm saying it all wrong, and let me pass the ball over. But what were you saying? It blew my mind. Everyone on the call, I could see everyone on the call. Like, everyone on the call was like, "Oh, what did you say that again? That was really good."
Well, it's that. Yeah, that's. Thank you. That's not my thinking. That's Dr. Elaine Starko. She has it in her book, and we can share it out in a little bit. But it's really, I think it's really transformative, because so often, we have to think about what it is, and this is what I love what Lisa was just saying, what we want to develop in our students, and that higher level thinking, that more extended thinking, and designing is the higher level thinking. But as instructors, we can have creative lessons. And so you have to think about who gets to do the creative work. Are you doing the creative work as a teacher? So that's teaching creatively, and that's really amazing and a wonderful thing to do. Or are you teaching for creativity, in which the students get to do the creative work? So an ideal situation is you're doing creative work and your students are doing creative work, and everyone is growing creatively. So that's the bar that we want to set ourselves at. But if you're doing this incredible lesson plans and things are sparkly and wonderful, and your kids aren't getting to do that extended higher level thinking, then you want to be kind of pushing your kids to do the more creative thinking. That's the opportunity we want to give them.
I love it. Yeah, and the idea there, I do technology integration, and when we get kids working with technology, we want them to like get the tech out of the way and let the content shine. Like, show me what you know. Don't just make it so that we're watching a video. And that's like exactly here what you're saying with creativity, and this inherent breeding in of we just need to be more intentional about this. We need to bring creativity to the forefront. But also, as educators, like, we have to infuse that also into our own daily lives. Like, as designers of lessons, using good design principles in my lesson design is also a good idea, right? It's not going to hurt. No.
Exactly, because you're modeling it to the students. But the other thing I think that's really powerful about that, and what's happened, I think, with creative work for a very long time and education, is that, okay, I want my kids to do something creative. That's 30 minutes on Friday afternoon. That's the cherry at the very end of a very long project. We're going to do really traditional things, and then, okay, they made something for 30 minutes, checklist. But that's not how creativity works. Creativity is creative thinking, not just creative expression. And the more that our kids get to grapple with a problem from different perspectives, to think in creative ways, to look at a science experiment from multiple ideas, to develop their own questions, that's where we're going to be developing their true creativity. So that way, when they are out in the world, they are ready to solve the world's problems, because they have a lot of practice in creative thinking.
Yeah, that's true. And Tanya, I remember being with you in Norfolk, we had watched a movie. It was Most Likely to Succeed. And that was the first, you and Holly were there and had shown me that movie. I'd never seen it before. And that's exactly what we're talking about here too, is like this idea that we as educators need to get together and like have a like, can we all sit down at the table real quick and like talk about this? We need to be more creative, no? Like,
yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we're at a place now where when we watched that movie, I think it was like, David, it was like 2015, I think. Maybe, yeah, it was like 5 years ago. And we were watching that thinking like, oh, wow, you know, like this is how it needs to be. We're not there. And, you know, 5 years kind of have gone by. And I think 2020 is the year that, you know, we're watching it and saying like, is this going to happen now? Are we at that point where, you know, this shift in teaching and learning has to happen? And I think as we're going back with this, you know, definitely with a lot of uncertainty and understanding of what 2020 and beyond is going to look like for us as educators, it's such a like an honor to be part of this show because, you know, when I'm speaking to teachers about the way that we're thinking about the experience of our learners, you know, right now people where I think teachers are really caught up is on workflow and just like not even about like, yes, I know I need to get there. It's like, how do I get there? And that's where everyone gets really stuck. And that's why it's really important to really think through the experience that your learners are going through. And I actually was just like mesmerized by Rebecca's quote. And I actually think we're going to like, I want to make posters of it where you just said, you don't even realize how like, boom, this like stuck in my head, but like creativity is not just about creative thinking. Sorry, it's not just about creative expression. It's also about creative thinking. And I think that also goes into like designing the instruction, right? And like thinking about the way that you're designing that experience for your learners. So just keeping all those pieces in mind, it's really about that mindset that you need to start thinking about. It's not just the worksheet. It's not just the output. It's about how are we designing creative thinkers? And I think that's a really big part of what we've been trying to do through Adobe. Wouldn't you say, Clara? Like through that lens of like where we were trying to kind of move our community and and the way that we were really thinking about teaching and learning. And
yeah, and I think at Adobe, it's really interesting because traditionally we've worked primarily with graphic design faculty and digital media. And now more than ever, it's so important for students and any industry to be able to tell your ideas and tell your story in a visually compelling way. And so it's been really interesting working with educators across K-12 and higher education in English, in science and math, and seeing how creativity is such an integral part of the curriculum, is so important part of teaching and learning. And again, it's not just for the arts or for digital media. It's, as Rebecca said, how to be creative in your thinking and in your expression.
Can we all agree that every teacher who had to do some type of remote teaching or hybrid learning or anything went through a massive crash course in creativity, creative confidence, because we got thrown a curveball? And I gotta say, I saw some incredibly creative educators just laying it down during that like 60-day period where it just seemed like who knows what's going on. And that's exactly the point here. We're chatting behind the scenes here, but like creative thinking is such an important part of creativity. And I love all these, we see like the videos from like Ken Robinson and the TED Talks where they're like, okay, everyone think about like, what is creativity? You know, and then they're like, what's the first word that comes to your mind? And everyone's like, art class and painting. And, you know, and it's like, whoa, no, that is way not what creativity is about. It is so much more, and it's so important. And it's something that we all have that we have to like practice and be good at. No, am I?
Yeah, no, I agree, David. And I think one of the things that's really tricky with creativity is that there are more than 250 definitions for it. No one has a real agreed upon definition. If you get down to it, usually it's, like making connections between different ideas. Something that's novel, it's good, it's useful. And that's in creative thinking. It doesn't mean that what you created works. It means that you've connected things in your mind. And the neat thing about what we know is that that's just what our brains do. The architecture of our whole brains is meant for creative thinking. But what happens is so much of the architecture of our learning experiences are meant for us to have one right answer to every problem. There's one right solution to every question. And we don't actually get to grapple with really doing deep creative work. And that's what we have to shift for our students. If we want to have great creative problem solvers, we have to give them opportunities to do creative problem solving.
You saying that on the call before, it was like, as an art teacher, your job should be trying to like empower their creativity and then get out of the way. Like, whoa, just go do your thing, go be creative. That's the best way to let it grow. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of scaffolding, and creative thinking isn't just, and there's so many myths around creativity. Sometimes it's, there should be no restrictions or constraints. And if you talk to any designer, any creative person, they're going to say constraints actually push you to think more creatively. So like it has to fit inside of a box. You can only have 6 words. Like that's why the haiku was invented, is to make someone really think creatively. These things aren't just happen chance. But as an educator, you can get to the point, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it happens in degrees. And this is what's so great with getting to design the Adobe Creative Educator program. And level 1, it's really an awareness of creativity. It's available in all subject matters. Every subject is creative. Every kid has the potential to do creative work, and in every single discipline. Math is one of the most creative fields, but we don't think about it because we're not always giving kids an opportunity to be creative in math. The same thing with science. Like if you get out of how we teach a subject and you get to how professionals do that work, they're doing creative work constantly as a professional. Just think about what a historian does, what a mathematician, an engineer, what a scientist actually does. When you give kids the opportunity to do that real work, you'll see that that's all incredibly creative. But we tend to not do that in our K-12 classrooms.
Well, then I want to go back to what you were just saying, because you had just mentioned a course, and at hyperdocs.co, like our main mission is to give online professional development to teachers, like free and or next to nothing. And so we want to provide like a ton of learning around that instructional design piece of like, how do we package this content that you're so good at teaching? How do we package this in such a way that's going to speak to our students now? Right. And you had just mentioned having the Adobe Creative Educator.
Yeah. So I'll let Claire and Tanya talk about this, but we've been working behind the scenes and creating a learning experience that is just 1 hour that takes someone from being like, I don't really know if I get creativity, or I think I kind of get it, to understanding it on multiple levels, to be able to recognize it in your students and in yourself. And that's the one thing. I've been doing this creative work for a long time. A lot of teachers are incredibly creative, but because they don't know how to label it, they don't know how to recognize it, they don't see it in themselves, they don't see it in their students. So we talk about that in the course. We get into how it's available in all subject matters, why assessment, which is the scary, like elephant in the room, is actually incredibly powerful driver for creativity. And then like how to continue to develop as a creative educator. So Clara and Tanya should talk about it, but it's so exciting. We've been behind the scenes creating, I think, a really amazing learning experience that any teacher, any level can take and go, okay, actually, I'm way more creative than I thought I was.
It's been so great to work with Rebecca and the team on this too, and really thinking through what is the creative process. So not only for educators as they're designing instruction, but also for your students. And so going through that whole process of define, create, and reflect, and how to continue working through no matter what the subject area is. And the Creative Educator program, we are doing our launch party on Tuesday. We're so excited. And it's really an opportunity for educators to connect globally with other teachers from all around the world, and have a badging program and a professional development, really kind of scaffolded process where they can kind of go through the introduction to creativity, what it looks like, and then moving from there, later on we'll have, how do you bring it into instructional design? So it's really exciting because this is for the first time with Adobe. So we're really looking forward to building this global community and just connecting with teachers all around the world.
Yeah.
I feel like I could talk about this stuff like forever. Sorry, Tanya, go ahead.
No, I think for me, what's really exciting is building our creative community. I mean, already there's just been such a great response. We did a few pre-launch experiences that were more live. We're opening the online course next week, but just like seeing the excitement from these educators from all over the world has been really, I think, like the highlight of my summer. And I think more than ever, community is so important as we're kind of, well, I mean, I'm even isolated in my office most of the time. So just kind of having a place where you can speak to each other, share ideas, I think is also really exciting. And also really exciting the fact that like there are literally hundreds of thousands of schools and districts all over the world that have Adobe Spark for free and don't even know it.
Yeah.
And like they don't even realize that they have this free, powerful creative tool. I mean, Adobe has lots of amazing creative tools, but Spark is free, will always be free, and it's available in all these schools. And people don't even know that they have access to it in their domain through their Google or Microsoft login. So what I'm excited about is the ability now to connect to teachers all over the country and to raise awareness to the fact that they have these really creative tools that they don't even realize they have access to. And I've been doing a lot of PD around Spark at districts. Like I did 4 at Palm Beach County virtually. And it was amazing. Like I've had principals reach out to me and be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I really need, like my teachers are going to love this because so many of our teachers are, they want their students to do creative work. And they don't realize that they have access to tools that are COPA and FERPA compliant, that are accessible on a Chromebook, that provide opportunities for students to make videos and websites and beautiful graphics. Because I think now more than ever, we're going to have, and I agree, it's not about the expression per se, but having the tools that enable students to make their thinking visible and to be able to design with that in mind so that you have opportunities for alternative assessments. They are available, and sometimes that blockage is just not knowing that you even have access to these very simple tools that will enable your students to do that. So I think that's a big part of my excitement as someone who's always kind of, I hate my title, like it sounds kind of like as an evangelist, but who is really like excited about these tools because I know that they empower student voice and they provide opportunities for students to make their thinking visible. So yeah, that's probably a big part of my like major excitement for the next few months.
Yeah, my teachers that I work with at my school always get excited when I show them the Adobe page, the web page designer, because it's so step by step and it's so easy to use, and it's like you really don't need to know much about like good design or really, well, yeah, a little bit, but like it just throws in all the like extra stuff that you don't have to worry about. It's like why I buy a MacBook, right? Like I don't want to worry about all the extra stuff. I just want it to work and have it be like this pretty little package. Like that's what it's like, and then the students get to just fill it with their good stuff. Like the creation part shouldn't get in the way, right? Like just let me be creative and let me show you what I know and let me put my voice on it. But like Adobe Photoshop, it took me like a long time to learn Adobe Photoshop.
Yeah.
Adobe Post is like that.
It is. And David, I think what's really powerful about getting to have tools at all different kinds of levels and all different kinds of tools is that it might not be part of our curriculum, but our students have to learn digital literacy skills, and they have to be, my goal is for all my students to be fearless with tools, because the tools are going to continue to evolve and change. They are going to have to continue to learn new tools throughout their entire professional careers, not just their academic careers. So I want a kid to be able to sit down and go, I don't know how to do this, but I know how to learn it. And so we can only do that by putting powerful tools in kids' hands and going, okay, how do you learn tools? Let's help you. What's your best way to do this? And I take my kids, I take my high school students from Spark to Photoshop and Illustrator and back again. And there's times in which each one of those things are powerful. And it's not that they have to learn a specific program, is that by learning powerful industry standard tools, they're going to get a job someday and they're going to say, do you know how to do this? No, I don't know how to use this program, but I know how to learn it. And
this looks a lot like something I've seen.
Yeah, and I know how I learn programs. This is my next step. But if we don't, I was the first person to be terrified in college having to learn a 3-dimensional modeling program, and I thought I was going to quit my whole course of study because I was too scared. And then after 6 months, I was a little bit more comfortable. So as an educator, my students come in and they panic the first day. And I'm like, don't worry, in 3 weeks, you're going to feel better. And after 3 weeks, they're like, okay, I feel better. Because they have to build that confidence as a creative and that the digital literacy skills to learn new tools. Because in 6 months, I mean, how many times has all of our, we're all, over 25. How often has our entire computing world, our tool world changed? And what's going to happen in the next, we can't even imagine what's going to happen in the next 10 years. But we have to prepare our kids to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Right. And we're one update away from all of our favorite online tech being looking completely different because they changed it. But we had a really great question come up in some of the comments. There it is.
Yeah.
It's Ventura on Periscope asking us how we might incorporate racial and social justice in, it says your art education. So I'm assuming there, Ventura, you might be talking about an art class, but I think we can even extend that into the art of education and just teaching in general. Any recommendations from the guests?
Yeah, I mean, I think now more than ever, just really equipping students with the tools and the processes to be able to tell their stories and to share their voices, whether it's on social media channels or, sharing their perspectives through blogging. And being able to do that in a visually compelling way. And so if we give them those tools to be able to create a beautiful graphic or tell their story through a video, it just allows them to make that story so much more dynamic. And we're giving them the tools, like Rebecca said, that are industry standard. So we're also providing more access to students too through free tools. So when they're going to apply for different jobs in the marketplace, they're already equipped with that. And then are even able, what I love also about social media is we're connecting students to leaders of different nonprofits or organizations or different influential leaders where they can actually have that dialogue and engage. So that's one of the beauties of Spark too, and it's available on web. It doesn't matter what tools, what devices students have. They can just start creating initially.
Yeah,
it's so powerful.
I also like being an ally, like being an art ally, like being able to, maybe it's not your story to tell, but being able to lend your art to empower others' voices as well. I talk a lot about passing the mic. I recognize in my position, I have the ability to have a platform. And so being able to pass that on to someone else through, any means, through filmmaking, through creating art in any way, I think is a really powerful way to do that.
Yeah. And I would add to both of those, as an art educator, if you can see it, you can be it. And so one of the first things I do, and sometimes it's explicit, sometimes it's very subtle, is that any of the artists that we study or the examples that I bring in, there's always, I always have a filter that, are we seeing voices from every background? Are we seeing, transgender as well as, people with disabilities, as well as all different kinds of racial backgrounds and socioeconomic backgrounds as our artists. And then I actually have a project that I have my students do where they have to find, an artist who has overcome incredible odds and, do a project around them. So being aware of the incredible artwork and artists and creators out there that have done either social justice work or they've come under, out of incredible, difficult backgrounds. Those things have been really inspiring for my students because, I have a number of transgender students, and just subtly one time watching a video about an incredible transgender artist doing things just in the background, they were like, wow, I didn't know. I didn't know. And so I think it's our job to make sure that we're filtering that for our students as often as we can.
And I know there's also other resources on the Adobe Education Exchange. So that is our open educational resource platform. We have over 500,000 educators on there. There's a link, I know we posted it right here in the chat that Tanya shared it, so perhaps we can post it in the live comments, which is edx.adobe.com/social-justice. We have a lot of resources on there, instructional materials that you can access to share with students. And another great resource that I love as well is Edutopia. There's a lot of great materials on there for bringing that into your classroom and virtually too. Cool.
I think David has gone, oh, there, yeah. So these are the resources that you were just mentioning. These are the social justice curated resources that they put together on edX. And it's just a collection of blog posts and lesson ideas, through the use of Adobe Spark or Rush or XD, so some of the tools that are available. It also links to some other educators' resources as well in Khan Academy. So it's pretty impressive. Actually, it's not even necessarily all Adobe. I see there's Common Lit and ISTE. So it's just a nice curated resource of some social justice resources that are available.
Yeah, and those are written by and for teachers. So yes. These are people who have used these, tested these in the classroom. And then the neat thing about edX is there's space for comments and sharing and continue to grow and develop from that. It's pretty powerful. Every time I get on there, I'm surprised at what I can actually find.
Yeah, I love it too. That it just all comes so full circle too. I mean, what we're talking about being a designer and not being just someone who willy-nilly grabs stuff and throws it in front of their kids and then expects this marvelous thing to come out, and just saying, we need to be intentional about our design. We need to be intentional about what we're putting in front of our kids. And then hearing Rebecca and Tanya and Clarence say, look, we need to be intentional about infusing creativity, not only in the process of designing our lessons, but also in the reflection piece, and then allowing our kids to be creative and getting out of their way and allowing that creativity to happen. And then we're hearing this social justice piece come in and saying, gosh, we need to build that into the design protocols that we have. Are we being creative? Are we being equitable and showing all these different faces and letting everyone hear all these different stories that are so important to hear? And that also that they might be identifying with even more. I mean, that's the rapport that we build with students, isn't it? That going right back to Lisa's analogy all the way at the beginning, when we just use Uber Eats, education, teachers pay teachers, we just get this thing, right? But when we understand who we're cooking for, and we know that so-and-so doesn't like onions and it can't be too spicy and stay away from citrus, we get this so much better of a lesson because we're the ones who took some ideas from this Adobe course, from edX, from HyperDocs, and we chopped it up and we made this new thing just for our audience. And I think that's really like the heart of what we're getting at here, and what we're putting out there. And in the checklists, these are just resources that teachers can just cutting through some of the red tape to get you to these outcomes quicker. That's what we're here for, right?
And I want to add something to that, because I also recognize how scary this is, like for teachers. Like, I've been at Adobe this year, but the year before I went back to the classroom full time, and I had worked part time, but I had my own classroom again, and Rebecca was there during my process. And it was very humbling because I had been supporting teachers for so long, and she's smiling because she knows. Like, I went through this I went through like stages almost of grief of like what a loser I was I felt I felt completely inadequate because I had had published a book. I had been speaking to teachers. I was like, I've got this. I'm going to go back. I'm going to make all my HyperDocs and I'm going to design these really, everything that we're saying. I was like, I can do this. And it's not that I couldn't do it. It was just, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not trying to be like Debbie Downer, but it was like really hard. It was like, you know, really, because when you care and then you realize like you're doing it and it's not working the way you thought it was, and it's like, it's scary, and I get that. And the truth is, if I didn't have a community, like Lisa knows too, I called Lisa up, crying to Lisa, please help me.
Well, I think Rebecca touched on that though, Tanya, and it's that feeling of control that is so ingrained in teachers, and it's that being brave. And I'm so grateful to the Adobe community to really be the forefront leaders in encouraging that creativity, because once you are brave and can let go a little control, it starts to bring you all that energy to teach, brings out that creativity in you, brings in those endorphins.
100%. And I only tell this story not to be, but to be
real.
like,
it's real.
It's real, but here's the reality. That's why we build these communities. That's why there's the HyperDocs group. That's why there's the Adobe Creative Educator group. That's why we are, you know, you're not alone, is my point. It's like, I have my community, my learning community. Doesn't mean, you know, for some teachers, maybe it's not your colleagues at school, and that sucks, but that's okay too. It happens. Like, that's kind of the reality of being in your school, but you seek out community. And that's why having each other, like people who are so passionate, you know, like that's who meet on a Saturday afternoon to do, like who are planning all summer, who are watching this right now. You have us, like we are your community, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. And it's scary, but like, you're not alone. That's where all of this comes together.
I think the best part too, Tanya, is that those communities they come up with these great events, and they like have so much more to offer, you know, for their people.
Well,
sorry,
I'm
Rebecca.
excited. No, I'm excited because I completely agree. Like we go through this. I was there through Tanya's whole, like, that year back teaching. I remember everything. And I was like, you see, it's so much harder. And that's, you know, I teach full time. And, you know, when I do workshops with teachers, it's, you know, I'm like, I left my students for the day to do this, or this is my summer break. It is tough, but I think and I love Lisa's analogy. But like what I really hope with the Adobe Creative Educator community, with this course, with the materials and tools that we're designing, is that it's going to really bring up people's creative confidence as an educator. And that confidence is like translates just to like that metaphor about being a chef. You know, if you're a real chef, you can open up a cupboard and you're like this, boom, and you have a meal. When you feel uncomfortable, you want that recipe and you want it to be just lockstep. And then I have friends who don't cook, and like they stand behind and like they're like stirring and they're disgusted. The chef is like, yeah, let's get into this. They're empowering the ingredients. And with that, like, you want your students to have that thing that everyone talks about with the intrinsic motivation that only happens. Intrinsic motivation only happens when kids get to create, when they have skin in the game, when they have choices. And if you're not designing your learning experiences for those things, they're not learning. Like, the research shows kids don't learn if they don't have an emotional investment into what they're learning. So, and you are only going to get that by being that designer, by taking those things and going, what am I crafting for these people? And so we want chefs in the kitchen. We don't want, you know, people to throw together some recipes.
You are so into this. I love it so much. Is there a place and a time next week when we could get more of the Rebecca Hare sauce?
Like the nerdiness of Rebecca and her obsession with creativity.
Oh, I love this. The smell of this design conversation is so chef-like.
Yeah, we'll be live on StreamYard as well from the Adobe channels next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Rebecca is going to be giving an overview of all of the resources that she's created with some of the, we have creativity card prompts, a poster, and a couple other resources to really spark creativity in your classroom.
Guys, we have a party. You got to come.
It's a party.
You got to come.
We have 75 like interactive prompts to help teachers that they can just copy and paste. Well, not copy, like craft around designing and learning experiences and bring creativity into all parts of the creative process, and scaffold that. Even if you're someone who's like, I don't really get it, we have it scaffolded. Something you can use it, but then it's remixable so you can continue to like develop that on your own. And then I don't know how many people are allowed into this, Claire, so we're saying this live, But when we have the summit, we're doing well, Clara can explain. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about this, so I'll let Clara say.
No, go for it. Basically, we're giving the Adobe Creative Educator course that you can do, a self-paced course on the edX, which is available now. Rebecca will be leading it live. So she'll be doing a live session. And if you attend the Adobe Education Summit, so that's July 28th through the 30th, on July 28th, Rebecca is giving the live course. So you can interact with the course developer, connect with other educators, and then we're giving, upon creating the assignment, your Adobe Creative Educator Level 1 badge. So we definitely encourage you to come to the summit. We also have Adobe product team members that'll be there. So if you're interested in animation or designing an app with your students or videography and you've never done it before, we have a bunch of different sessions for that too. So we're really excited for that in the end of July.
That is super exciting. And that is also a fantastic way to say thank you to everyone who watched live. Thank you so much if you made it to the end and you're rewatching. You can, oh, the hearts. So
you see that in our live stream, like, thank you.
You can always find links to everything that we were talking about in our Facebook group or in the comments under YouTube. I'm not sure where you're watching, so I'm trying to cover them all here. If you're in Periscope, head over to our website, hyperdocs.co. You can find links to everything that we talked about there and in the comments and in the descriptions as well. But thank you so much for joining us on your Saturday or whenever you're rewatching. And we hope to catch you next Saturday. We are live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific time in the United States. So thank you. We love you. Thanks for watching. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today.